Welcome. I'm Paul Denham, your host of the B2B Uncovered show, and my guest today is Steffen Hedebrandt. Welcome, Steffen.
Thank you, Paul, and pretty well pronounced pronunciation of a Danish name.
I've been practicing all evening. Steffen is the CMO and co-founder of Dreamdata, a B2B revenue attribution platform, which provides great insights into the B2B customer journey. Now, that is a hot topic, and that's what we're central really to our discussion today, how to unlock the B2B buying group journeys to drive revenue faster. So let's dive straight in. Steffen, why have customer journeys in B2B gotten so complex? What are your thoughts on that?
Good question. Perhaps they've always been complex, but we just used to think about it as something that one sales guy do, or like that sales guy would be the one hunting for the leads, then having meetings, flying, playing golf, going to conferences, etc. But through digitalization, digital maturity, etc., we've started to become more and more aware about if things generate digital touches, then we're also able to measure it. And then starting out with Google Analytics almost 20 years ago now, at least the consumer journey digitally was relatively easy to understand. Like you click an ad, you arrive at a website, you pay for whatever you bought, and then you can see in your e-commerce web shop you've sold something. This more and more B2Bs are becoming hungry, ambitious to get. And what they then realize is that, oh no, there's data all over the place. And some of it is quantifiable, some of it is less quantifiable. And we need to extract it out of all these systems to stitch together a pattern of what's really going on. So I think the complexity has always been there, but we're just now becoming more ambitious, more aware, and more about what we actually want out of what we actually would like to be able to answer. Like, is it this ad, or is it this ad? Is it this piece of content? Is it that sales guy, this conference, etc.? So I think that would be my interlude to this discussion. And then there's all the problems about solving the problem afterwards. But I think that this is what we're seeing. People want the same transparency as they do have in e-commerce. They want to, in B2B, go to market nowadays.
Yeah, I suppose what I was thinking, I agree with all of that, right? I think people want to, if you're marketing and you're marketing and you try and understand that journey, you're going to want to have as transparent and accurate and clear a picture of that journey as possible. But I suppose, when we look at the complexity today, 10 years ago, or even maybe even shorter, were there as many people involved in that buying journey, let's say the buying group per se, as there are today? Gartner's, I don't know if you've seen that sort of depiction of the,
I have,
it's like a spaghetti. It's great though. I think it's a really good visualization. You got a top left start, bottom left purchase, and you, in an ideal world, you go, well, surely it's pretty much a straight line. Well, that's how perhaps marketing has viewed that in the past, and we know it's not. So there's various tasks that say those contacts, those buying group members have to do, and they do it on a group basis. And then you've got the various tasks, and then you've got, wow, it's like backwards, forwards. I'll have a chat to you, Steffen. We'll have a little chat. A bit of, I need to get some validation from you. We need to go in some consensus of finance, etc. And so how do you map that, right? I think there's a recognition now that, gosh, this is more complex than perhaps we've been led to believe. And that's now and you actually have to prove that because obviously you're talking in post purchase interviews, but also, as you know now, with the data. So I suppose it's about that. I suppose my question was, it's complex. Is there a particular reason for that, or is it? And does the reason also, I suppose, is the fact that there's so much content out there that actually most people are not talking to vendors until very late on in the journey?
I think that's a good observation, Paul. And and then a little bit what I said in the beginning, like back in the day, the salesperson would be like the gateway inflection point of most things. Whereas now, with the internet, we as consumers, buyers of things, we're just so used to there being so many resources out there. It could be your conferences, it could be podcasts, it could be, LinkedIn, review platforms. You get the ads pushed in front of you, etc. So I think it's right, Paul, that one of the complex things is that, you don't hear about the buying journey before people are starting to like be ready to buy, because they've done their homework before they come to you nowadays.
Exactly. And so you've got that issue, i.e. there's the, and also let's not forget about the dark social, where actually no one can track really what's going on there. They might be talking in private Slack groups or community groups like B2B Trenches, et cetera. But we'll put that aside for a moment. Let's look at, yes, the vendors unlikely to have a solid idea of what's going until quite far along into the buying journey. And then you've got, the actual, it's not a single buyer, is it? When we're looking at an account really, as opposed to perhaps signals just from one person. What's your thoughts on that? And how as a marketeer can we solve that?
We have quite strong data on how many stakeholders is involved at Dreamdata, both for ourselves and for our customers. So we integrate with the CRM system, and we look at which accounts have won, and we can count the average amount of stakeholders on the account when people sell. For us, there's an average of 5 people on the account at the point of time when we sell. I think we're on the higher side because we're a product that you can try before you sign a contract. So you invite your colleagues to check this out before we sign. But I think like you just need to think about B2Bs are buying as a team and as a buying committee always. So you might have a product for the marketer, but the marketer might have, an IT data guy that he needs approval from. He needs his manager to approve it, and he might also need the CFO to sign the contract or something like that. So that means that the committee of people that you need to convince, you also need to cater to all of them. So on your website, you need to have information available that is valuable for all these people. IT, security, like what's the business rationale here? What is the marketing problem we solve for, and so forth. So the fact that things are so complicated, it's so stakeholder rich, means that you also need to adjust your tactics for how to, succeed with customer journeys to these people.
That's a big challenge, isn't it? If you tick all the boxes of what you've just described, for a lot of organizations, that is going to be quite a big ask with limited resource. Obviously, with the big enterprises, they can still screw it up, right? Because they're just running down a dead end. But there are a lot of organizations that are doing this really well. And as you said, understanding within a buying group the different personas and the different informational needs that those people have. If you're just talking to one of those, that's i.e. one persona, or your content is talking to one persona, that's going to leave you tricky, because obviously, let's say it was a security person who has an interest in your product because they need to be able to, lift up the bonnet and understand what the risk was or how secure it was, etc. They need to be able to say, well, bring in, the C-suite and other lines of business. But just passing them or the same story to them is not necessarily going to tick the box that they have to, because everybody's got to have some sort of interest in this, and it's and it's like a Venn diagram, isn't it? If you took a typical Venn diagram, 3 circles, where if there was 3 people in the buying group, they've all got their self-interest in why this particular service product is going to be of use to them, but where they overlap, and you've got that. Where a Venn diagram typically has the common area, your content surely has to be able to resonate and speak to each of those separate entities without over confusing. And this was an interesting point, Steffen, that came up recently. Is that actually, I think Gartner brought it up, is that over personalization about particular buying personas without realizing that actually they need to communicate that to their other personas can actually slow down the buying journey.
Because there's just
there's basically, it's called, you're just selling the message to that person, but you're not realizing how that message has to overlap in the Venn diagram to the other person. And that is, I actually did a post on LinkedIn a month or so about that, and I found that fascinating. So we've got this complexity. We know it's a buying group rather than a single individual. How do we unlock the information on that buying group level to actually drive revenue faster? What do we've got to have an understanding of the informational needs. We've got to know who's in that buying group. But how does a marketeer take all that and go, well, actually, this is all fantastic, but I'm now accountable for revenue. I have to be able to show that what we're doing as marketeers is adding to the bottom line. How does that happen?
Yeah, this is pretty much like the problem definition I had in my last job before starting with Dreamdata. My opinion about marketing is that you should do it to produce pipeline and revenue for your company. Otherwise, you're just wasting your own time and your company's money. But the fact is that, I would say, 19 out of 20 marketers do not have abilities to write code or, come up with something that is anywhere near a solution to this problem, because it's very complex. Mm-hmm. The benchmarks we put out a couple of months back said that the average journey would be 192 days, had 32 sessions, and more than two users per account. That is one, like an average. And
hold on. That's interesting. Let me just drill down into that, Steffen. So let me just get it. So 192 days. Are we talking specifically about your product service, or is this generally in the market that you've
This is from it's real data from accounts on our using our product. Really? But what the journey we are describing here is from the first touch on an account until you win it. What you typically get if you ask one of your customers or people in your network about how long is your customer journey, they'll tell you from the point of time that contact hit the CRM system, and then report on how long does it take from they hit the CRM system until you buy. Yeah. What we can see in the data is that the unknown time, the research phase, tends to be 1x or 1.5x of the identified time. So given the numbers just related to that, 192 days, then they spent 90 days where you actually know who they are, and then 90 days up front of that, just researching, getting exposed to ads, reading content, looking at review websites, etc.
Wow. Okay, so that's really interesting. So what you're saying is that the research element of it can be 1 to 1.5 times as long as the normal identified time from the point it normally goes into a CRM.
Yes.
Wow. And did that surprise you, or not?
It actually surprised me that it was that long across. It's hundreds of accounts data, so it's not just like one particular company with a long journey. Yeah. And I think this matters immensely for a bunch of reasons. But first of all, if you want to add more pipeline, then in average, it's too late this year, though there's still 3.5 months left of the year. So it means when you're planning your budgets, you actually need to start you need to plant those seeds a lot earlier than you think for the salespeople to be able to harvest the revenue from it later on. It also means that when you're trying to understand whether something is, a certain growth activity, a marketing activity is good or bad, you cannot draw up the conclusions after, a month or maybe even 2 months. you need to at least then you need to have some proxy metrics for what you think will become revenue later on. And this also is like you need to go on an educational path within your company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Our journey is not the time we know from the CRM system. It's twice that. And this means XYZ for how we are to go about things.
Yeah, no, got it. In terms of that number, the 192, did you also look at the value of the deals? Is there a spectrum in terms of, from $10,000 to whatever that because obviously, generally speaking, the lower value is going to be a faster buying journey than a more expensive, because more people are going to be involved. There's going to be more ticks and boxes, et cetera, et cetera. Any insight onto that?
Yeah, so there's first of all, there's not enough data here to be like scientifically rock solid. Mm-hmm. We could see we did see differences in countries, industries, or for example, entry channels. So if they came from a review platform, they tended to convert to sales a lot faster. Whereas if they came from like social channel, where they've maybe just been exposed from a LinkedIn post, and then they kind of start to pay an interest, but they're still far from being ready to buy anything. That channel was a lot longer. So there was definitely different sorts of granularity, but there's not enough data for me to like statistically really bang on
okay.
it. But I totally buy it that the bigger the value, probably also the more research time will go into it.
Mm. Okay, so all right, so we understand that there's or from the data you're able to surmise the pre sort of the research phase where maybe there isn't the transparency. In fact, we know there isn't the transparency to the vendor. That's 1 to 1.5 times. How do you actually understand the touch points during that research phase?
So I can tell you what we do with our company.
Mm-hmm.
We're building up a go-to-market data warehouse for our B2B customers. And what that means is that we're trying to take any touch that touches any account anywhere and put it into the same place. So that would typically be your CRM systems, which have the data of the salespeople's activity. Could be a marketing automation platform, customer success software, outreach software, your ad platform activity, your website activity, and so forth. So trying to extract all the data out of all the silos that they live within. And then you're pretty much just left with one big mess. And from there, you need to refine it and clean it up. So you build what we call an account-based timeline, which means we know these 5 people from one account. They are actually not individuals only. They're actually representing one customer journey, which is the account's journey. Mm-hmm. And this is what makes up all the difference, because like the ad platforms you use today, your Google Analytics, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, they're reporting on the behavior of an individual, not at an account. And this means that if you start the journey poll and I'm the guy who signs the contract, and we spent the marketing money on attracting Paul, but not on getting me signed, then what we did with you, we just wasted the money because it never, ended up becoming anything we want. So like aligning people across different people to the same journey, that's what enables us to get that revenue component like e-commerce have, that you started here and then you ended here, and it was a good or a bad go-to-market idea.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that concept, and I like the ability. It's quite attractive proposition to be able to understand that through the data from those various sources. I remember looking at something in terms of the attribution model, which we'll come on to as well. I think you had quite an interesting customer journey graph that I looked at, where there were those 3 personas, but the third persona, who actually did the demo and maybe actually traditionally would have been associated with the buying decision. They didn't realize actually the other work that had gone in for that third person to get to that point. That's the problem we're talking about here. It's about identifying at that account level the different personas, different people within that account who are contributing to the final action, which traditionally has been, they went to Google and they stuck in our brand name and they did a demo, and guess what? Bingo. God, that's Google. Yeah. Let's just throw a load more money at Google. Well, actually, the story misses out the 1.5 or even the time research by different people to get to that point. Yeah. Because what happened was the early research that was going on then came in the office or in the Slack group and said, by the way, did you hear about X? This is it. This is what they can do. And that third person then goes, yep, that's great. Let's right. This is the sort of promised land. This is where we all want to be. And we want that to be crystal clear. Okay. Yeah. And if you've got the magic potion to be able to deliver that, then that people are going to listen to that, because this is a problem that's not going away.
For the examples you've been giving there, Paul, like, if you're looking inside of the CRM system, they typically report on something they call the original source. But the original source is only capturing the session when the conversion happens, and not all the other sessions that went into research. Right. And this means that 9 out of 10 times it says direct, when in fact it's not direct. People didn't just arrive at your website to book a demo or sign up to your product. They went through like a string of research and then they booked. But the CRM systems can't capture this complexity.
Yeah, no,
definitely. That means us as marketers look like we're just wasting money because the dots are not connected to this point.
Yeah. So you talked about 32 sessions during that 192 days. Explain what a session is there.
So a session for us means that a session can be a visit to the website. It can be a phone call, a meeting, an email was clicked, etc. So it's basically individual actions along the customer journey.
Okay, so it's different from, let's say, we need to have 7, 10, 12 touch points of different pieces of content with an account, or some people talking about with an individual in order to make a sale. It's a different thing from that, right?
Not really. It's kind of like if, the journey persisted only of digital touches, like what you described there, then the sessions would be just that. But we're very deliberately including meetings and calls in the equation as well, because we're not trying to say that you can win B2B deals by generating clicks on an ad, because it typically takes the work of the salespeople to get the contract signed. So all digital, everything that leaves digital reflections, like having a meeting, having a call, I went to this conference and registered in my CRM system, all those touches could be a session as well.
And are you able to map that visually on a case-by-case basis to look so marketers, salespeople can look back and go, wow, actually, a bit like Gong does with telephone conversations. Does Dreamdata allow you to visualize that and understand that? Ideally through some sort of visualization.
Yeah, so I really like Gong as well, by the way. But so from a micro level, you can open the individual journey of every account, and then because you have the touches on the individual journeys, you can aggregate that up into different kinds of analysis. How do we produce money? Which kind of the customer segments are we dealing with? Which ad platforms are good at, etc. So it starts by collecting the micro journey of one account, and then you can aggregate that up to different kinds of analysis on top of that.
That sounds very powerful. So how is we talk about funnel, or we have traditionally in marketing, the funnel, okay, as if it's some sort of, typical shape, everything, load stuff goes at the top and then it just narrows down and out comes the sausage meat, okay, or the sausages. Yeah. How has your perspective, your insight And now we're talking about sort of the complexity of B2B buying groups. How has that changed, that whole buying journey, changed the traditional perspective of a funnel? And what should marketers be? What are the common mistakes that marketers and general sales people are making that actually, this is so obvious now. We need to really make an effort to change this.
So like, obviously I'm no god of marketing or like speak the truth, but I've kind of personally, I've given up on the funnel thinking per se, like funnel as there is a perfect path to take people through, because there's not. Mm-hmm. It's not like in e-commerce, it's the scope of touches are very narrowly defined. Clicked an ad, signed up to the newsletter, clicked the newsletter, bought the shoe.
Yep.
This does not take place in B2B. It can be like 3 months journey, 9 months journey, 12 months journey, 2 people involved, 3 people involved, 5 people involved. So the way I think about it is that you need to know how long it takes to move through your pipeline and how long it takes from one stage to the next stage. So the way we then reverse engineer our revenue is that we know what a deal is worth. We know how many sales qualified leads we need to generate one deal. We also know how long it takes from being like a sales qualified lead to we win the deal. And we can also take a step back and say, how long does it take from being an MQL to an SQL? And how many MQLs we need to produce one SQL? So the way I'm thinking about a funnel is that I need to constantly be putting enough qualified demand into our pipeline. And then if at least I care enough about the quality of the stuff that I put in, then the likelihood of our salespeople hitting their numbers the next quarter is there. But I don't do any kind of per se funnel thinking this is the perfect journey. Mm-hmm. It's about catching the right people's attention and then like just constantly be putting out quality content in front of them. Like, because you don't know when the timing is right. You only know that it's the right person. So you just gotta keep pumping out good stuff on YouTube, on LinkedIn, retargeting, emails, etc.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a big advocate of the reality of the situation, that if you have 100 potential accounts that fit your ideal customer profile, that at any one given time, less than 5% of those are actively buying in what you're selling.
Maybe closer to 1 than closer to 5 even.
There you go. 5 would be Christmas. Okay. So, so let's work on the basis of somewhere between 99 and 95% are not buying. And a good proportion of those will never buy from your organization for whatever reason. They might not like you. They may, whatever reason, there's going to be a chunk of that. And, I've looked at some models and they say, well, you take 30% of that 90%. So you're playing with potentially 60, 65% of that 100, of those 100 ICPs that possibly at some stage in the future are going to buy what you're going to sell or what you're selling. And as you said, for me, it's about understanding that concept and setting the systems up so that you have an engine that markets to those. You won't know what the 30% is. You're effectively marketing to that 95%. You just know that a third of it's not going to go. And then continually, never stop nurturing, never stop educating, never stop helping. Never stop, stop selling, but never stop educating, because those. Yeah,
that's a great one, Paul.
What's that?
Never stop educating, but stop selling all the time.
Yeah, stop, because they don't want that. What they want is really good information that's going to help solve their particular pain point, that challenge, or educate themselves about that. And what will happen, Steffen? And what happens is that 1% at the top is a revolving door. That 1% doesn't stay 1%. There's another 1% from that 90% that's going to move up there. So if you're right, and that continually happens. If you have that mindset and you actually have the systems in place to not look at this as a quarter by quarter by quarter. We've got to just have this engine that's continually generating brilliant content to the buying group that you've identified in the ICP. Because if you haven't fixed your ICP, if you haven't drilled that down day one, you're going to be just wasting everybody's time.
Yes.
Right. And the chances are your career is going to come to a pretty short end in that organization. You go and do the same thing somewhere else. Right. So ICP, understand buying group, great content, helpful, set up that process. And then with something like Dreamdata, understand and get to understand what is actually going on and how is that B2B buying journey, how you're unlocking the insights into that buying journey so that you can drive revenue fast. You make better decisions because it's data driven and it's not just from the point that it goes into the CRM. That makes perfect sense to me. You know?
I think that like the single best thing we've done in our company was to create like an ideal customer profile that everybody in the company understands and respects and acts according to. It's not just a marketing exercise. It's a company-wide alignment method, I would say, for us at least. So we in marketing, we only try to attract this type of company and this type of persona. And the salespeople, they're only allowed to spend their time on the same persona. And the product people, whenever they have to decide on what features they build, they look at the ICP, all the requests that have come in, is this going to fit our ICP? Because then all of a sudden, all of the employees start to pull in the same direction instead of having their own kind of sub-projects here and there. You should be able to wake up at night and say, what I'm doing is still aligning towards the ideal customer profile that everybody in the company has agreed upon.
I think that is absolutely key. If everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet, for want of another cliche, you know, and that ICP is dead center on that page, and every action, sales action, marketing, messaging, blah, 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 is focused around that. That's the way to go. Now, the problem is, Steffen, is that it takes a very disciplined approach and leadership to say no to those that don't fit the ICP, because they might think, oh, we could just sell this. We'll sell this and we can fill our numbers and just sell it. Great. You know, so what? They've got a heartbeat, right? But, you know, and that's very short term, because that will come back to bite you on the bottom. Right, because that client's not going to be a good client. They could be you lose the deal. They don't renew. They become bad ambassadors for your brand, etc. Right. So I think, look, everything else that us marketers talk about, that ICP and that adherence, that alignment, that North Star is all of it. Otherwise becomes a slightly, you know, out of place. So
I so much agree, and like it can be it's painful to like say, go from saying we can kind of sell to everybody to saying no, now we can only sell to these, because you always have this fear of missing out, or was there some potential over here or there, or I had this contract I could have the customer to sign, but you know, if you're in a subscription business, then you would know that one of the worst metrics to have would be like a churn rate of customers, because your investors will go saying people are not happy when they are about to renew your product. So like, like, you know, sometimes there's also the practical necessity of you need to fill the bank account. So, okay, let's try and sell here. And and like, if you don't have any leads at all, sometimes you just have to be practical about it. By the North Star should definitely be in place in terms of the ICP. And just one trick related to this, we started by defining an anti-ICP. So what is the antithesis to who we want to attract? Because sometimes it's easier to say who it's not rather than who it is. Yep. So by doing that, you get a ballpark of what you're trying to do, because it's definitely not those types of people.
Yeah, that's really good. In fact, I think Full Funnel talk a lot about the qualification criteria are as important as the qualification criteria. I.e., it's much easier to go, no, work out what you don't want That's going to help you drill down on what you want. I like that. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to couple of quick fire questions here, Steffen.
Hit me.
Who are, I don't know, 3 people who've been most influential to you along your career?
In my career, so I think I did a LinkedIn post a little while back about it. But so I have one friend who has been running a couple of businesses, and he really always says that it's always about sales, also for marketing. Just by understanding that it's not the likes, the newsletters, etc., that pays the bills. It's sales that pays the salaries of the companies. So if you want to be successful in marketing, it's Bo, by the way. So if you're ever listening to this, Bo, thanks for that advice. When you have direct impact on selling more, you know, marketing is successful. You don't get fired. You don't get your budget cut, etc. What else?
That's good advice. Very good advice. Basically, just sort of back to basic advice, isn't it? So you just got to keep that front of mind with all the other noise that's going on.
Yeah, and then there's so many things that have impacted. I actually, there's this very cheeky Walt Disney quote about, if you can dream it, you can do it, which I've kind of hit me many times. Like start dreaming and start describing it, what it is you want to achieve, and forget about all the limitations here of what you're trying to do. Just come up what exactly is it that you want to do, because once that vision is there, your practical, organized side of your brain starts to figuring out, okay, I want to go up here, but okay, what is the path then back to what we want to achieve?
Absolutely. In fact, I heard read something the other day which I thought was really apt for pretty much business and in personal life. The anxiety was predicting failure and confidence is predicting success. And the conversations we had, whether that's about the dream of where you want to take your business or in your personal life, these conversations we have, which, tend to be on the, I can't do this. There's 100 reasons why we can't do that. You start talking about, well, we can do this, or we talk about this vision, and guess what? You'll work out the way to get there. That's such a valuable takeaway there, right? Because that can be applied.
I have a million more quotes I could give you.
Oh yeah, and I love them because I think they help you sort of realign, right? When you're slightly going off piste, let's get back on the piste. Some of these things do help you. Great, I love them. A lot of value in those. Thanks for that. Okay, what parts of your job do you wish you could spend more time on, and what parts do you wish you could do less of?
So what I like the best is just constantly digging for more growth, running more experiments, testing stuff, see if it works, go back to the engine room, try more. So the practical parts of doing marketing, I really, really love that. Here's an idea, let's go do it. Let's look at the response. That's the best part. Then I love
the word experiments there, Steffen, because we've got to treat these as experiments, right? Which are going to have some failures.
You need that mindset of, Thomas Edison mindset of, you're going to fail 10,000 times before you get that light bulb to blink. So just be prepared for, constantly test out stuff. A lot of it's not going to work. But when you do find something that works, then keep building upon that while you run experiments on the side. Because if everything is an experiment, it doesn't hurt if it doesn't work. You just move on to the next experiment.
Totally. And so you've got to also encourage and have that culture in a company where it is okay to fail. You just got to understand and learn what that experiment is, what the takeaways from there, so that you can incrementally improve. Yeah. This is something that in a lot of organizations, it's not there, right? There isn't that. Yeah. You get reprimanded if you waste what they can perceive as you've wasted that money. You've screwed up. You've made a mistake. That's not healthy. Yeah. Is there any question you wish that I had asked you today?
Maybe so the kind of why do we then need to understand this B2B customer journey? What is the purpose of reaching this enlightened state?
Okay, Steffen, why do we need to understand this B2B journey and reach this enlightened state?
Because then we know what works. And when we know what works as marketers, we can go and repeat it, and we can skip the stuff that doesn't work. So if we constantly get rid of the stuff that doesn't work and move more resources into what do work, ads, content, video, whatever, like kind of the normal distribution of our activities keeps sliding to the right side. So in order to be successful, you need to know what worked in the past, so you can do more of what probably works in the future as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely 100% agree with that. And, it comes down to being able to experiment and have the processes in place to understand what goes on, what went on in that experiment, so that you can then make adjustments to that and that's the way you move forward, right? Yeah, good. Okay. Any others?
No, I think that I'm happy with that.
Okay,
one.
So signature question. I'd like to ask, what could marketers do to create more trust with buyers?
I would say actually, so generate more reviews, build more social proof.
Social proof.
Go ask every customer if they want to give a review on the review platform that is relevant to your industry. So in software, it's Capterra and G2. Mm-hmm. If you're a local restaurant, maybe it's a Trustpilot, or what's it called? The big one, anyway. But, go ask your customers to submit reviews on the review platforms in your industry. So when somebody's considering whether to buy your product or not, they will write X restaurant review or software plus review. And then they can see 100 other people who tried it out, explains how it works. And then they will also trust you that signing a contract or buying your product will be a good experience.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good answer to that question, because social proof is not only critical today, but it's going to become even more important in future. Yeah. Because that's where we much rather listen to other people's experience rather than the vendor's claims. Okay, so you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, as we say. Excellent,
yeah,
great.
Anyone can build a pretty website and put some fancy letters in there, but you cannot compete against like 100 or 1,000 positive reviews.
Correct, definitely. Okay, so before we wrap up, would you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and how to get in touch?
So that would just be LinkedIn. So just Google my name on LinkedIn. Right, type in my name in Google, and it's probably going to be the LinkedIn profile that's going to be on top. And happy to connect with any listener and answer any questions they might have.
That's great. And it's just for listeners, it's Steffen with double F-E-N and Hedebrandt. So, yep, you can go search away in LinkedIn, Google. Excellent. Thank you, Steffen. Thank you for your time, your insights, and sharing your journey. And thank you to all our listeners. Have a fabulous day. And as we say here, never stop learning. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again for joining me on B2B Uncovered. If you liked this episode, then please hit the subscribe button. Want to go the full hog? Hey, yeah, I'd love a rating from you. Just tap the number of stars that you'd like to give us. As we're just getting going, that's going to help tremendously. Thank you.